I see. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. Really glad that you're here with us and there with us. I don't know what camera to look at anymore. But we're going to get through this together.
We're good.
So really grateful for everyone who's here to join us to celebrate not just Shabbat, but also our annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Shabbat celebration, always put on wonderfully by the Social Justice Committee here at PJTC. And we had some great plans. The plan, and there's a Yiddish saying, Mensch tracht und Gott lacht. Men plans and God laughs. And so not everything that we wanted to come to fruition tonight has come to fruition tonight. Nevertheless, we are in this spirit of celebrating Shabbat, also celebrating the legacy of Dr. King. And our good friend Carl Selkin from the Social Justice Committee will be up here in a little while to share a few words about what's happening tonight, what's not happening tonight, and what, God willing, will happen in the very near future. Before we get started, I just want to say a couple of things about this community. If it's your first time here, or your first time here in a while, first off, this is a safe community, and we really appreciate everyone who abides by the safety protocols that we have posted, which includes wearing a mask the entire time you are in this space. So if you're in the building, we need you to have a mask over your mouth and nose the entire time. If you need to take a break, if you need to get some fresh air, if you need to take a drink of water or something like that, you are welcome to go outside. You're welcome to leave this space at any time. You will not offend us in the least. Take what breaks you need. Come back in good health. And for those of you who are vaccinated, thank you so much for doing that mitzvah for yourself, for your community, and for this world that direly needs all the mitzvahs it can get. This is also a musical community. We celebrate Shabbat and holy occasions by making music here at PJTC. We are here to make music for you, but not instead of you. So as we're singing tonight, we highly encourage you to sing along. That's the kind of music that we do. As you heard in a minute ago, we were humming. There were no words. That means that everybody knows the words. So if you catch the tune, please hum along with us. Tap the rhythm on your prayer book. However the Spirit catches you, you do you. But please join us. Even if you're joining us on live stream, I know I do some of my best singing when I'm on mute. So please sing along with us. You will have a better experience, and we will feel that you are there. Also, because we are live streaming this, the entire service is captured. That liberates you from taking out your phones and taking pictures of anything or recording anything at any time. We've got you covered, so just put those phones away, put them on quiet, and be fully present for this holy service. We've got you covered. The last thing I want to say is, if you've been here recently, you might notice something different.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have these kind of Office Depot webcams up on the Bima, and ways that we have been really stretching ourselves, and the community has really been stretching itself to enjoy these services. in a time when we can't all be together like we'd like to be together. Although I know that there are some folks who've enjoyed them more than ever because their services are accessible in a new way. We've recently made some changes thanks to a generous investment by this community, a generous investment by the Federation of the San Gabriel and Pomona Valleys, that we've installed some new cameras. We've installed a projector, so instead of having little monitors over here, you can watch parts of the service that are going to be up on there, maybe tonight or other nights. We're going to see how it goes. So one thing, it's a wonderful upgrade that we are just starting to do tonight. So what that means is that there's going to be bugs. There's going to be blips, there's going to be blaps. It's not going to be exactly how it was. Whenever you try a new thing, the new thing is never exactly as good as the old thing until it gets way better. So if you'll just bear with us, if there are any kind of delays or glitches, we're doing our best. And just, if you need to, close your eyes and enjoy the service that way.
That's right.
Just be with us to celebrate our imperfect world, which means we're constantly invited to be God's co-creators in this universe that we're building together. So with that, we are going to celebrate Shabbat. We begin with a song that we welcome in angels that we see blessing us on Shabbat and dwelling with us in peace and sending us, and then we send them on their way. It's this song called Shalom Alechem. It's on page 13. If you have one of these blue books, it's page 13. And I think it goes similar to the tune that we started with.
That's correct. I always say to everyone who asks me how is the relationship between you and the new rabbi, who's now not the new rabbi anymore, and I say, it's phenomenal. He says, everything I am thinking, but much nicer. That to the point of there will be some glitches here and there, and just take it as a growing pain. And join us. Let us know if there's anything that could be improved. Page 13. Shalom Alechem, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nineh Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Together. Yalla lai 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 lai, yalla lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And even as we increase the sound in this space and
the song in our hearts, we also increase the light. And part of welcoming in Shabbat is saying a blessing over the Shabbat candles. And I'm going to invite up Karen. I think, Karen, you had somebody else joining you as well? Welcome. Amen.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Well done. Thank you. So part of this process of welcoming Shabbat is a process of ascent. We rise out of the mundanity of the work week into the holiness of Shabbat. We do this by means of a series of songs and psalms, starting with a psalm that you can find on page 15. Page 15, L'chon Ranana.
לכו נרננה לאדוני נריע לצור אישנו נקדמה פניו בזמירות נריע לו כי אל גדול אדוני מלך גדול על כל
אשר ביד המלך הארץ.
ארבעים שנה אקוד ודור ואומר עם טועי לבבם והם לא ידעו דרכי אשר נשבעתי ואפי אם יבואון אל מנוחתי שירו לאדוני שיר חדש.
We continue on page 16. Sing to Adonai a new song. Shir Adonai shir chadash. Shir kohanim.
דורו על כל אלוהים כי
Ki kol Elohei ha'amim.
ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלואו, ירם הים ומלואו, יעלו שדי וכל אשר בו. אז ירננו כל הצייר, לפני אדוני קיווה לשפוט הארץ. ישפוט תבל בצדק ועמים ואמונתו.
We move from these psalms that come from our poet King David to a more recent song of merely medieval vintage of Lecha Dodi. This is some sages of our tradition living in Tzfat about 500 years ago were really active in how they envisioned welcoming in Shabbat, and they embodied this whole thing. They said we should welcome in Shabbat like we welcome a bride walking down the aisle, or like a queen, like a visiting dignitary into our midst. And whether you hold Shabbat as something transcendent or like an intimate friend, you say the same thing, Lecha Dodi, come my beloved, welcome. And we're going to begin on page 22, page 22.
Together. לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לא תבושי ולא תקרמי מה תשתוכחי ומה תאמי וכיחסו עניי ימי ונבנתה עיר אל תהילה together לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה והיו לי משיסה שורסייך ורחקו כל מבלייך יסיס עלייך אלוהייך כמשוש חתן על כלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי על יד איש בין פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת ועלה גם בשמחה ובצולם תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה speak it up a little bit לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה one more time לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה
You may be seated if you wish. We continue on page 23. Page 23, our final psalm for welcoming in Shabbat is designated the psalm for Shabbat, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. We're on page 23.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך באמונתך בלילות, עלי אסון ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידך, במעשה ידך ארנן. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני מעולם קומך שמותיך, מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני מעולם קומך שמותיך. יא אלי 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 יא אלי יא אלי אלי יא אלי מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך
Once again, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this celebration of Shabbat and this celebration of a holy weekend, I believe, in our country, celebrating the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. At this time, I'd like to invite up Carl Selkin, who is going to say a few words on behalf of our Social Justice Committee.
Shabbat Shalom. By the way, I'm not Colonel Sanders. I'm Carl Selkin. I'm a member of the Social Justice Committee leadership team here at Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. And the first thing I'd like to do is to thank Rabbi Carrier and Cantor Ruth so much for being so nimble in accommodating the sudden changes that necessitated the postponement of the Urban Voices project performance and the recognition of Debbie Singer as the recipient of the Rabbi Marvin Gross Social Justice Award. I know that when these events are rescheduled in the spring, all of the PJTC community will celebrate. COVID has disrupted these events, but inequities in healthcare that the pandemic illuminates have far more catastrophic consequences. And our frayed civility calls on all of us to repair our social world as well as the physical world we live in. We schedule the Mlk Shabbat once a year, but the pursuit of justice and the enduring legacy of Dr. King are not confined to a single day. We need to commit to the work of justice every single day, and we need to be grateful to those who are inspired and who inspire us. In the spirit of the Jewish values that resonate in Dr. King's struggles, the Social Justice Committee strives to promote actions that will house the unhoused, create access to affordable housing, and ensure that renters are not jeopardized by predatory practices. Our committee partners with organizations like Citizens Climate Lobby to stem climate change and transition to carbon-free energy. And we respond to the challenges faced by immigrants and refugees, histories baked into our DNA as we are the children of immigrants and refugees. We do all this keeping in mind the racial and gender inequities that still contort our society and which we need to continue to struggle to rectify, as did Dr. King and those who are associated with him. The plight of Afghan refugees calls us to join in the initiative of the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society to resettle families currently sojourning on army bases around the country. The response of our PJTC community has been most impressive and gratifying. Men's Club, Sisterhood, and Social Justice are shouldering the goal of welcoming and settling an Afghan family in Pasadena. We've secured an apartment, and now we ask that our community access the online sign-up genius on the PJTC website to provide the necessities this family will depend on. We still need volunteers. Please contact Susan Auerbach to discover how you can play a role in this project. We know it takes a village, like so much else, and there are forms in the lobby for those who can offer time and talent to build this welcoming village. Visit the PJT Social Hall next Thursday, January 20th at 7:30 p.m. for an update and more informative discussion. Although our plans for this evening were short-circuited, I know that we all recognize that the planning, work, enthusiasm, and care to make the program happen still called upon so many to take us right up to the last minute. Thanks so much to the PJTC clergy and staff, to the Social Justice Committee team, our Sisterhood co-sponsors, to the Urban Voices Project, a nonprofit organization that lifts the voices of our Skid Row residents, to all of those who had committed to joining with us this Shabbat, and to those who recognize and nominate the many in our congregation who exemplify the passionate commitment to social justice and equality to which we are called by the ever-present voices of Reverend Martin Luther King, Rabbi Marvin Gross, and all those who light the way. Let me just say how important I think it is at this time to think positive but test negative. Shabbat Shalom.
יישר כוח. Yeshua, Carl, and I really want to say a word of personal gratitude to the Social Justice Committee here at PJTC, not only for every year sponsoring and planning this incredible event, but also being that shofar for us throughout the year to the holy work that we do, not just as a Jewish community, but as Jewish neighbors in the broader community, in the name and inspired by the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. There are times in our lives that test us, that test our mettle, that test our character, and that test our faith. I don't know about you, but I'm waiting for this time to stop. There are also times, though, in the lives of a people that test a people, that test a people's mettle, character, faith. And sometimes that people rise to the challenge. Sometimes the people do not. Sometimes it just takes one person to lead the way, to set the example, to show the others that it can be done and how, and then the entire people rises to meet that moment. Tonight, I want to talk about two such moments in the history of two distinct but maybe not so dissimilar people. I want to talk about two such individuals that took a step where others feared to tread and changed the course of history. Now, among these two people, you can probably guess that one of them was Dr. King. And because of where we are in the Torah, reading the book of Exodus right now, you might guess that the other one is Moses. Spoiler alert, it's not. But he was there. Of course, the first such time I'm talking about appears in Parashat Beshalach, this weekly Torah reading that we're doing this week that includes the book of Exodus, chapter 14 and 15, and it talks about this critical moment in the history of a people. And you'd think this was the finale. You'd think we were done. You'd think we were just celebrating. But because we've just gotten out of Egypt. And when we left, we even took the long way around. That's a different story. But just as we are about to escape, we wind up between the devil and the deep blue sea. We wind up at the shore of the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds. Stop dead in our tracks, which isn't so bad. It's a nice day at the beach until you hear hoofbeats, until you hear the squealing wheels of chariots and the cries of war, and you know Pharaoh is hot on your trail. And in this moment, our people are terrified. And they're tested. They say to Moses, maybe Egypt wasn't so bad. In fact, they pepper him with this, I'll say, characteristic sarcasm. And they say, what? Was it for want of graves in Egypt that you brought us out here to die in the wilderness? By the way, Egypt, famous for its graves. If you've ever seen the pyramids, that's what they are. Was this place famous for graves, so lacking in graves that you brought us out here to die at the sea? Do we need this trouble? Maybe. We never should have left. Maybe. It's not too late to go back. But in Exodus chapter 14, verse 13, Moses begins, and he says to the people, have no fear. Stand by and witness the deliverance which the Lord will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will battle for you. Hold your peace. Then the Lord said to Moses, Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward and lift up your rod and hold out your arm over the sea and split it, so that the Israelites might march on the sea on dry ground. Thus will be your deliverance. The part that always catches in my throat when I read this is this moment where God says to Moses, just like the people before, God asked Moses a rhetorical question. Why do you cry out to me? And the sages of our tradition look at this verse and say, interpret what God is saying is, this is no time for extended prayer and supplication. This is God telling Moses, this is a time for action. This is a critical distinction of faith. See, throughout our story, God puts two possible paths in front of us, one of blessing, one of curses, and makes it pretty clear what God wants us to choose. We have a choice. God has an opinion. But ultimately, the test is for us. In this case, we have two different kinds of faith to choose from. You can choose the faith in what you are accustomed to, that everything will be all right, and if it won't, God will take care of it for us. That faith of stillness, of immobility. And then there is the faith that God gave you, the wisdom, the strength, the chutzpah, to get yourself out of this pickle that you're in. That's a different kind of faith. And God is clearly expressing a preference. Don't just stand there and pray. Hold out your rod to the sea and walk. Don't choose the faith in the comfort, the security, the predictability of what is. Put your faith in the glory of what ought to be. And the hero in this moment is not Moses. It's said that all the tribes of Israel were arrayed on the seashore, and nobody wanted to go first. As I always say to my students, this is a generation of urban construction workers. Probably didn't have a lot of time to learn how to swim. But there's one guy of the tribe of Judah, who's actually a direct descendant of Judah, named Nachshon. And he's not just a descendant of Judah, but as we know from the book of Ruth, he is a progenitor of Boaz. Boaz is a progenitor of David. David is the progenitor of the Messiah. And somewhere along that line is this one guy who wasn't even in charge. He said, all right, God said walk, here goes nothing. And he steps out into the sea, and he steps out to where the water's at his knees, and he steps out to where the water is at his chest, and he steps out until the water is above his nose, and that's when our tradition says the sea parted. Because God put before us two kinds of faith, faith of sitting still and faith of standing up and marching forward. Not faith in what is, but faith in what ought to be. There was another moment in history, not quite so long ago, not 3,200 years ago, but merely 65 years ago. And it was in 1957. It wasn't at the beach. It was actually in front of the Lincoln Memorial. And there was a gathering of merely thousands of people, not a couple of million people, but let's say thousands. It's still a good-sized crowd. And there's a young preacher, and I say young. I mean, I'm embarrassed how much younger he was than me when he did this. And he stood in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and this was 1957, mind you. This was on the 3-year anniversary of a landmark Supreme Court case that struck down segregation in schools. This was something to celebrate. However, even though the law was on their side, the authorities were not. The elected officials were not. The police were not. And they needed the federal government to come in and enforce that law in their own hometowns. And so Dr. King says, we have the right, but we do not have the might. And rather than standing there and asking people for their thoughts and prayers, he asked for something else. And he said to the people assembled, give us the ballot. Give us the ballot, and we will no longer have to worry the federal government about our basic rights. Give us the ballot, and we will no longer plead to the federal government for the passage of an anti-lynching law. We will, by the power of our vote, write the law and the statute books and bring an end to the dastardly acts of the hooded perpetrators of violence. Give us the ballot, and we will transform the salient misdeeds of bloodthirsty mobs into the calculated good deeds of orderly citizens. Give us the ballot, and we will fill our legislative halls with people of goodwill and send to the sacred halls of Congress people who will not sign a Southern manifesto because of their devotion to the manifesto of justice. Give us the ballot, and we will place judges on the benches of the South who will do justly and love mercy, and we will place at the head of our states governors who have felt not only the pang of the human, but the glow of the divine. At a time of great shift, a time of great change, a time of great progress that still left a people on the edge of the sea, with the horses and the tools of war clattering behind them, an apparent impossibility to see the promised land in front of them. They had a choice. Dr. King's people were a people of faith, but there are two kinds of faith. There's the faith of sitting still, of praying, of trusting in God, but totally delegating to God. Or there is the faith of marching forward, and God will raise the road to meet you. And that is the faith that Dr. King was calling on us to choose. In the spirit of that faith, he concluded his remarks as follows that day. Go out with that faith today. Go back to your homes in the Southland to that faith, with that faith today. Go back to Philadelphia, to New York, to Detroit and Chicago with that faith today. That the universe is on our side in the struggle. Stand up for justice. Sometimes it gets hard, but it is always difficult to get out of Egypt. For the Red Sea always stands before you with its discouraging dimensions. And even after you've crossed the Red Sea, you have to move through a wilderness with prodigious hilltops of evil and gigantic mountains of opposition. But I say to you this day, keep moving. Let nothing slow you up. Move on with dignity and with honor. This faith that's put before us is not for everybody. Of all the people at the sea that day, there was only one who would take that first step But when he did, everybody saw that it was possible. This kind of faith is not for everybody. Thank God it was for Dr. King. Thank God it was for the people who marched with him and the people behind the scenes that we know nothing about. Thank God that was the faith that they relied on and led other people to follow behind. And thank God the people who follow behind them are still marching, because we are over the sea, but we are not through the wilderness. This faith is not for everybody. But I have faith that when we need you most to quit praying and start marching, this faith might just be for you. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for joining us here at Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center on this holy occasion of Shabbat and marking the life and legacy of Dr. King. We are going to continue with our evening prayer service in Mariv, which can be found in the prayer books on page 28. We begin with our call to blessing, the Baruch Hu, and it's our custom to rise and face the ark.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech
Baruch
haolam.
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. ומעביר יום ומעביר לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני
Baruch Shemo.
אמרי ורבי.
Amen. You may be seated if you wish. We continue on page 29. We have blessed God for the light and for the sunset, and now we bless God for the constancy of God's love. Ahavat Olam on page 29.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו ושוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח לחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה נהגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל אוהב עמו ישראל את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
We continue the next passage at your own pace. We're at the bottom of page 30. We'll get back together in just a moment. We join together at the top of page 31. Vayomer Adonai al Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta lehem v'asu lehem tzitzit al kanfei bigdeihem לדורותם ונענו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת והיה לכם לציצית וריתם אותו וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריכם למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת אמת בינו. We continue on page 32. We bless God for light. We bless God for the constancy of God's love. On page 32, we have a blessing for God's nature as a redeemer. And in a particular passage of this prayer, we even quote the Song at the Sea, which is the Torah portion that we're reading. And part of that song that we sang spontaneously on the other side of the sea was the question, who is like you, our God, among all who are worshipped? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai.
Let's join together. You probably know the melody. And if you don't know the words, just hum along. Yadalai, lai, lai, lai. Yadalai, lai, lai, lai. Yadalai, 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 lai. לפני משה ומרים וכולם זעילי ענו ואמרו זעילי ענו ואמרו אדוני ונאמר כפד אדוני את יעקב וגאה לו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך שמו
גל ישראל.
Amen. In our final blessing of this part of the service, we bless God who helps us to lie down in peace and also helps us to awaken in peace, who spreads over us the shelter of God's peace. Hashkivenu on page 33, page 33.
Together.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor at Seiteinu U'oeinu Lechaim u'leshalom ve'ata ve'olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom, 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 shalom. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch Shemo,
הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ועל ירושלים.
Amen. On page 34, we sing a song from Exodus chapter 31, instructing us how to observe Shabbat. V'sham B'nai Yisrael.
ושם ארו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. אוי 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 ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים והארץ וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה
Amen.
וילמד יברך כירותה וימליך מלכותה וחי
נכון וביום נכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויברוך אמן יהי שמרה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמם ויברוך Amen. We rise for the Amidah prayer for Shabbat evening. This is a time for private prayer. You can lean on the words of our tradition on page 35b or pray whatever is in your heart. Have a few moments of peace. When you're finished with your personal prayers, you may be seated and we'll all get back together in just a little while. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי אמן עושה שלום שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל
שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן ועל כל יושבי תבל
We conclude this prayer with the Kiddush Shalom on page 48, page 48.
יתקדל ויתקדש שמר רבה
אמן.
ואלמדי ורחמנותו וימליך מלכותו וחי יכון ומכון ובחי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה בזמן קריב וימרו
Amen.
יש מרבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי יומיים יתברך וישתבח ויתבר ודרום ויתנשא ויתהדר וידרג על שמי לקודשה
בריחו.
לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמת אדם מירם בעלמה וימרו
Amen.
תתגבר צלות ונועדון לכל ישראל קודם אבון ושמיה וימרו
Amen.
יהי שמרה משמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו
Amen.
עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל וימרו
Amen. One of the final prayers of our service, Aleinu, reminds us that the world that we want to see is our responsibility, or in Hebrew, it's on us, Aleinu. We rise for Aleinu on page 51, page 51.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. על כן נקבל לך אדוני אלוהי נראות מרב תפארת עוזך חלבים. כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולמי תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב את תורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
You may be seated. Before we conclude our service, we always pause to remember with honor those who are no longer with us. Here at PJTC, this week we're marking the yard site, and that's the anniversary of the passing of Alex Schaefer, Alex Zeckley, Arnold Brody, Ben Siegel, Bertha Ehrenreich, Bruce Furman, Selena Zlotnicki, Daisy Siegel, David Arkush, Edward Zisman, Eleanor Levy, Eliezer Schumer, Estelle Alper, Esther Rosefield, Esther Schneider, Francis Zisman, Gage Burr, George Black, Goldie McGilner Paul, Harry Axler, Helen Farbman Jacobson, Herbert Barg, Howard Krimko, Isidore Goldman, Jeffrey Kane, Lillian Chazen, Marcia Elsner, Marilyn Bosch, Marvin Rosenthal, Mary Nadel, Max Maniloff, Meyer Cohen, Norman Gertz, Ralph Rosefield, Ruth Mark, Saul Furman, Seymour Schwartz, Sidney Lippo, and Sylvia Schleimer, and Zahava Eckstein Sweet. We also laid to rest this week a beloved member of our community, Dr. Matt Sofer, was laid to rest yesterday, and there were an announcement went out today. There will be a Shiva Minyan over Zoom at Mlk Shabbat tomorrow at 5:30. Hamakom Yenachem, may Matt's family and friends find comfort in the Holy One at this time. I'll ask that if you're in mourning or observing a yard site, you please rise. And we'll join together in Kaddish Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 52. Let's pray together. Yitgadal v'yitkedash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
Ba'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyamechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach leolam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brihu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. You may be seated for a moment. There's we move from kavod to simcha, from honor to joy. I believe there's somebody in our community who had a birthday this week. Can you remind me who that was? Was it today?
It is today, yes, and she is...
I don't ask. That's rude. I won't tell anybody how old she is.
I wasn't going to say how
Okay.
old. Actually, she'd be very proud. She's on Zoom, I was going to say.
Okay.
She's actually virtually attending our service. So I want to, can I say?
Yeah.
I want to congratulate Edie Taylor for her birthday today. So if you join me, we will sing Happy Birthday together. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. There's Edie. Happy birthday, dear Edie. Happy birthday to you. And many, 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 many more. There you see Edie. Happy birthday, Edie. We love you. We don't think we can hear you right now, but we definitely love you.
We have candles and everything.
Fun.
We are going to end this service as we began, and that's in joyful song. And often we sing Odivo Shalom, but today we're going to sing something a little bit different. We shall overcome. And I'll ask that you stand and join with us.
Let's join together. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my
The day will soon be here. 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 I know. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome.
One more time.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for joining us here at Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. If you'll stay where you are and join us for Kiddush. 1 second. We'll be making Kiddush on everybody's behalf up here, and we'll hope to gather outside after the service.
Okay, for those of you at home who have something to bless, we'll join together. You probably have something outside. They do? They don't? I'm not sure. New regulations. Let's join together. ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. Together. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית. כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. לחיים.
All right, those who at home who wish to wash as you wish. I'll wash my hands on people's behalf. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim.
Amen. And last but not least, the challah. Let's join together. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ בטעם.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom,
Good
everyone.
Shabbos, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Thank you for joining us here at PJTC. Wherever you've come from, you're in the right place, and we're grateful that you're here.